This past weekend, we had a kindness retreat, and there were a lot of gems that came out of that teaching time. And so, of course, when we spend time thinking about the kindness of others, and we do it long enough, and it's pretty easy to do. This is not a hard meditation to do because we've been surrounded by kindness our entire life and lives. After a while, it really engenders this heartfelt wish to repay the kindness. And so you'll just have to try it to see if that's true for you. But the other kind of angle that I really like thinking about lately is this idea of unintended kindness by people. And Venerable talks about this a lot, actually. And in, of course, her teacher, she talks about it because her teacher talks about it. In this little book called How to Expand Love, His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about this. And it really addresses our mind that likes to resist this one, because when I first heard about this, I thought, no, they don't mean to be kind. They're just doing their job. But this is what he has to say to this kind of complaining mind that I had. And he says this: to deepen your gratitude toward all people, it's helpful to reflect on the unintended kindness of those who provide goods and services without necessarily knowing the names or faces of those whom they serve. We live in dependence upon those who have no special motivation to help us. When we want rain and it rains, we're grateful, even though there's no motivation on the part of the shower to help us. Also, if we want a grove of trees to roam in, we are happy to have that grove and value it, even though the stand of trees itself has no motivation to help. Similarly, sentient beings provide necessities for our life. They are helping you in particular without ever knowing you in particular. In this life, there are so many facilities we enjoy. We have nice buildings, we have roads, and so forth, that are produced by other people. As you can see, thousands of people in this lifetime who you may never meet are showing you kindness. So I thought of a couple things just to reflect on. And if we even think, you could spend months probably reflecting on the kindness of those who are involved in the food industry. So here I have an orange. It's a very nice orange. I can't read the label to see where it's from. But a lot of oranges in this country come from Florida, Texas, California, and Arizona. Well, I found out this morning, maybe you already know this, some of you master gardeners, but it takes, for a navel orange, I don't know if this is a navel orange, is it? It takes between, 7 to 12 months for a tree to create an orange this size. If it's a Valencia orange, it takes 12 to 15 months. So imagine just one orange tree, which, by the way, in July, orange tree that's sort of mature and has a 14-foot canopy takes 29 gallons of water per day. That's one orange tree. But when I think about how many hands have touched this orange before I get to it and eat it, mindlessly sometimes. But there was the person who planted the tree, who knows who that was. Then the caring of the tree, how long does it take before a fruit tree produces fruit? 3 to 4 years? Longer than that. So there's the care of this tree throughout all the months of the year. And then there's the harvesting of this fruit. And maybe now in this country it's done by machines, I'm not so sure. But I can imagine people are climbing ladders and getting up and picking the fruit. And how that really is taxing on the body. And lots of people are doing this, full time to feed their families. So how many people have really... And then there's the transport of the fruit. We're not growing oranges around here yet, are we? Not at the Sravasti Abbey. So countless numbers of people. Someone had to load it into the truck. Then there's the truck driver. Then there's the people who fuel up the truck with gasoline. And there's the people who made the road so that the trucks can drive here. And it's just mind-boggling. And then I do something mindless like eat it without feeling any gratitude. For all those people who I will never meet, I'll never know their names, I don't know their stories. They're all suffering in samsara just like me, and they're all working like crazy just to try and get food on the table and pay the rent or the mortgage. So it's really, really humbling. So you can do this with any food that you're eating today. Just look at that broccoli and just think about who's involved with that. It really is an inspiration to think about this. And then when I was reading about how much water a tree takes, then there's the whole thing of, I think what this meditation really gets at for me is it cuts this mind of taking things for granted. And I'm embarrassed at what I take for granted. It's just about everything and everyone. It's really shocking. And so if this one tree takes 30 gallons of water in a hot month, I'm going to show you a demonstration that I just love. I used to do it in school. If you have kids at home, you've seen this, but it's easy to forget, and it's very impressive. Okay, taking water for granted. Fresh drinking water. There's no smell. It's safe. Without it, after 3 or 5 days, and we're not eating, we die. This is a 5-gallon bucket, and I know that because Venerable Losang told me so this morning. It says in the bottom. So this bucket, if it was filled with water, represents all the water on the planet. All the water. And that's water in the ground, that's water in rivers, in oceans, in glaciers, everywhere. Okay, if I take a little bit of water in this, and I put 1 drop on my hand. You can't see it, but I did 1 drop. This represents all the fresh water on the planet. The amount of water that was here during the time of the dinosaurs, and even when the planet began, there's the same amount of water. It just gets recycled. But now we know there's more than 7 billion people on the planet. Not too long ago, I think even during World War I, there might have been less than 3 million, maybe somewhere between 2 and 3 million people. Billions, sorry. Yeah. So the population is growing. The amount of fresh water we have on the planet is that much. It's limited. The glaciers are melting because of global warming. And then we're kind of sloppy with what we do with the water that's clean and safe for drinking. And so then we think about, well, do we think about anything when we go and get a glass of water? Or when we turn on the shower? And here at the Abbey, we have a well. And we can thank Venerable Tarpa for the fact that we have 2 wells supplying us here. But if you're living in a town or a city and you go to the tap, do you even think about it? That there's, the plumbing underneath that goes to the public utility water system, and there are all these people working for utility systems all over the world that make sure the water is safe and that they're testing for disease and anything else that could get in the water. And when you start thinking about the numbers of people, again, that will never meet unless your dad works for the utility department or your uncle or your aunt, there's thousands of people involved in just making sure that when we go to the tap, if we're so fortunate, most people in the world don't have a tap to go to. They walk several hours with a jug on their head. And so when we think about this unintended kindness of how people are doing their job and we benefit, then the argument that says, well, they're getting paid for it. But as Venerable Children says, yeah, they're getting paid for it. And they don't even, maybe they don't have the motivation to help. But the fact that they're doing their job, they're showing up on time, they're getting the job done. If they weren't doing the job well, they'd be fired. And then what happens if we're really careless, and this could happen, where eventually the amount of water that's fresh and safe to drink becomes a huge restricted supply. There's people who are maybe negative thinkers, if you like, on the planet who say that water will be the next reason for war. It's believable. Maybe that's really a negative view of things, but it is totally believable. And so then I'll just finish up with a simple one like the cloth that we have. And this is cotton. I believe these are bolts from India, right? It may be that this cotton is from India. We're not 100% sure. But most clothing, a lot of clothing in the world is still made from cotton. And then if you want to get interested about that whole process, it's very interesting. Go online. Cotton is grown from plants. And in the United States, the cotton trees are harvested by machines. But in India, it's still people going out in the fields, 12, 14 hours a day picking the cotton balls by hand, and then it has to be sorted and cleaned up because it's quite dirty, and then they have to transport to places where, it's, what are the steps here? I wrote them down. There's a process called ginning where they clean up these cotton balls, and then the cotton is eventually woven, and then someone has to sew it. So I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up in a family where sewing was a skill that was done or valued. All of my family were musicians. So if it was up to me that everyone here would have robes, we'd be in a very sad state. We'd have to rely on something else to clothe our bodies. When I was in grade 9, we had to take home ec. I don't know about you, but it was a miserable experience for me. I had never seen, well, I had seen a sewing machine, of course, but I'd never used one. And so this sewing teacher, after a while, she totally gave up on me. I had no idea what to do with the thread and where it goes into the needle and anything like that. And our task was to make a t-shirt. This was the most grievous experience of my life. I kept breaking the needles on the sewing machine because I didn't know how. And all these other girls in my class, their mums sewed. They could do it with their eyes closed. And here am I sort of sitting there like, what? And so, you know what? Eventually the home ec teacher just gave up on me, and she said to one of the other girls, "You help her. I give up. This is hopeless." So someone here knows how to sew. Venerable Yeshe knows how to sew. Venerable Tarpa knows how to who are the other sewers here? There's a few people who can do it. So if we were relying on people like me, oh, grievous. So take a look at what you're eating in the day. Take a look at what you're drinking. Think about this precious commodity that's limited, fresh water. And think about the thousands of people that we'll never meet in our life who are doing their job so that we benefit. And it'll truly change the tone of your mind that day.